Hey everybody, it's Angela and I am back with another nature journal spread. And for this one I am doing zinnias. In our vegetable garden I always try to grow some flowers every year, and one of the flowers that I grow are zinnias, and I put them usually kind of down the middle of my garden just to pull the pollinators and insects all to the center of the garden and hopefully pollinate all my vegetables on their way. And these zinnias are so beautiful. There's so many different varieties and colors that this video is kind of long today, because not only did I want to capture the zinnias in here, but also some of the insects that come and visit them. So I'm starting out by drawing some of the buds, and I had never really paid all that much attention to the budding zinnias, and that's one of the things I love about nature journaling, is it makes me stop and really look at something. And the buds have kind of almost a prehistoric quality to them, with those kind of big scales on the outside. And so I'm starting out with drawing some of the leaves, doing some of the green items in here. And the leaves are always in sets of 2. And then it's like there's a set of 2, and then it turns 90 degrees, and then there's another set of 2, and then it turns and there's another set of 2 kind of all the way down the stem. So that was interesting to note. They're beautiful smooth leaves with some veining down them, and I did use my stylus and impress in some of the veining, not all of it, just giving hints to the veining that's there. And then I'm just using the different shading to give the texture to the leaves. And for the buds, you can see the color of what the flower is going to be on the inside. And as that opens up, those big kind of scaly petals there on the outside become the bottom of the flower head when it's open. So it kind of supports that open flower. And so that was really nice to kind of note that. And a lot of times too, there'll be another flower that comes out of another flower stem that comes out from between those 2 petals. So sometimes you'll get another flower head kind of popping out of there, and just looking at the habits of what this plant does was very interesting, and paying attention to its form and just being able to really recognize it. I know that it does look quite a bit similar to basil, which my husband was like, hey, look at all this volunteer basil over here. And I'm like, well, no, those are zinnias. And but when I got to looking at it, I'm like, yeah, they do actually look a lot like basil, because they have those kind of big shiny leaves like that. And so that's kind of how you start learning plant identification, is by really paying attention to it, looking, are the edges of the leaves smooth, or do they have a serrated edge, and things like that. So I'm going through here. You can see that the flower head casts a shadow kind of across that leaf on that side. So my light is coming from the left. And so I'm kind of keeping that in mind as I draw. And you can see I went across and did all my greens for the stems and leaves. And this is going to be, the two buds are on the left hand page. On the right hand page, I'm doing several different forms of the flowers. I'm going to do one of the spiky zinnias that I grow, one that has the big like central cone on it, almost like a black-eyed Susan, and then another where it kind of shows the bottom of the flower a little bit and how that bud opens up and supports that flower from the underside. That was another view I don't normally draw and I don't normally pay attention to, so I'm kind of using this journal to kind of break myself out of just drawing a finished flower and the real pretty part, to really be able to look at the actual structure of what's going on there. And then I did choose a few of the critters. There's a lot of different critters that come and visit these flowers, but I pulled out a few of them that I sketched on there as well. I think a butterfly, a little like a cucumber beetle, and then another honeybee. And there were a lot of bumblebees, spiders, little different flies and pollinators like that, ladybugs, and yeah, it's just really full of all kinds of insects coming to get their meal. Okay, so I finished doing the two flowers on the left. The one was the kind of spiky version and of that deep orange color, which I think is one of my favorites. And then I also did that pinker flower, kind of looking up a little bit more from the bottom so that you could see where that bud opens up and supports the actual petals. So now I wanted to do one of the cone type version, and the ones that kind of remind me of black-eyed Susans with that big cone in the center. And the little yellow, I blocked the little yellow, I guess they would be called stamens, around the top. I blocked those in first so I wouldn't lose them and, color over that spot with a darker color. So I went ahead and put those in first, and now I'm going back in and putting in my pinks and going down to kind of some brownish blues for my darker areas. And the cones, they kind of poke up out of the center, and then that ring of yellow flowers, it almost reminds me of like what would be a little helipad for an insect to want to land there and work that flower. And so I wanted to make sure to represent one of those in this collection of zinnias. So I'm just going through, I'm adding some more of the low lights and stuff, kind of pulling my shadows. I'll go at the very end and add some black in my darkest dark areas, just to give that contrast. And on these, the cones, I think, are the stamens as they work their way up, and then they die, and then there's another layer, and then those die, and it keeps working its way up that cone until it gets to the point where it is now. So all those things on the sides of the cone are the dead stamens from previous rounds of them flowering out. So they have a little bit more brown to them because they're a little drier, and those are going to be all the seeds. And later I will collect those and collect all the seed, and then that'll be what I plant next year in my garden. So I've been planting these for a lot of years, and every once in a while I'll buy a different variety that I don't have and kind of add it to my mix. And but otherwise, this is just kind of what nature provides each year. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to afford to buy as much flower seed as I actually use. And so I spread it all around at the farm. And, because we're an organic farm, so we need all these pollinators, and I need the full amount of insects coming in and supporting each other and supporting the plants. And there are some that take care of other pests and some that pollinate, and they all have different jobs to do. So I want to make sure that they're all represented in the garden. Okay, so I have drawn the little cucumber beetle on there, and now have moved on to this skipper butterfly, and I'm not sure if that's the actual name of these. It's what I've grown up calling them, are skippers. It's a little bit later in the season for like swallowtails and stuff like that. I did see a monarch this year, came to my butterfly weed that I had, and so we've had quite a bit. I think right now mostly it's skippers and those cabbage butterflies, of course, and like the admiral butterflies. And so I'm going in with this. It's a very just kind of a plainer little butterfly. It's got a little bit darker orange on the top of the wings, and then on the underside of the wings it's got a little bit more of a yellow cast to it, and they have a little bit of a fuzziness to them. More so than some butterflies I've drawn in the past, that more like a moth, a little bit fuzzier. And they have the antennae that are like what you drew as a kid, the long antenna with the little, the little dot on the very end of them. It's a very pronounced little dot at the end, versus some like that cucumber beetle where it's just a straight antenna. And so I'm just going in here with all my oranges, browns, there's some blacks on there, and they have a little black along the edge of the wing. My photograph wasn't that great, it's just a still shot out of that video I just took. So I'm taking a little bit of artistic liberty with this, but yeah, mostly it's to get me drawing and to get me looking at things. And so if it's not exact, I'm not putting any pressure on myself to make a perfect drawing or do things in a certain way. I'm totally just kind of playing this by ear and really trying to just enjoy it. Whatever I get done will be more than what I would have gotten done had I not, just played around with it. So I'm just going in here, adding some of the darker veining to the wings and putting in my darkest darks. And they've got a nice big eye on these little butterflies. I've represented that. He's got some little stripes on his abdomen. And now I'm just going back in with that orange, and I'm going to put more orange on this back wing where you can see the upper side of it. And then I will probably move on to drawing a bumblebee. So this is the little honeybee that I drew, and after I was done with him, I went ahead and did my journaling, and I also did a little bit of stamping, like that word documented there. And you guys, this was so much fun. I think it represents kind of what I saw walking around the garden that day, and I really enjoyed doing it. And I did put a little bit of a drop shadow underneath that cucumber beetle, and I think on the little butterfly too. I didn't on the bee because he's supposed to be flying in the air, so because his little legs are kind of out, like he's just about ready to land. And then again, there's that stamping, just wanting to just get in there and use my stamps a little bit. So this is a good way to get some more use out of those. And so that is my finished spread. If you guys have any questions or anything on what I did here, just let me know. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.